Welcome to my show. I'm a guest here. His name is Robert Collin. Mr. Robert, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for the time and the opportunity, Mr. Robert. Firstly, you are an author. You are also a social worker and an educator, an environmental justice advocate. Can you please, Mr. Robert, discuss more about yourself and how you are doing currently now, Mr. Robert?
Well, I am a lawyer. I have two law degrees. I'm an urban environmental planner. I've written encyclopedias. Who writes encyclopedias, right, these days? And I always have had justice as an automatic in my life. I'm not a member of many organizations except those that I start. I'm a member of my church, which I didn't start, but I'm a member of the Environmental Justice Task Force, which was the first state agency in the United States to have environmental justice. And I helped students form the Coalition Against Environmental Racism. The students of color were being excluded from the environmental conferences at the University of Oregon. And they came to me and said, help. And I said, well, young uns, you have to learn to speak for yourself. I'll help you, but you have to speak for yourself. You can invite guests. They can stay in my home. Not many professors do that with activists. We do. And the students started the Coalition Against Environmental Racism that lasted many years, long after I left, because they found a place and space for their voice. And in many ways, that dynamic is representative of modern environmental elitism that doesn't really include lower income people of color, Africanity, in any way except tokenism. So I've been co-opted quite a bit. Much of my work has been plagiarized, cited, and I don't care. A thought is a thought. If I take my ego out of it, at least the thought gets around. A major publisher, the largest publisher in the world of narrative references, started marketing my books under somebody else's name and all over the world on floored global markets. I could have gotten angry. I could have hired lawyers. I could have gotten in all that negativity and fight, but I did not. And what I did is self publish my own books on climate education in the classroom. The preface of that book was used by the sponsors of a bill in the state legislature in Oregon to get climate education in the classroom, and it passed last June. I'm a very good advocate. I have been an advocate in many different forms, courts, legislatures, in my classroom. It comes naturally to me. The other book, the book that won the award from the librarians as the best book in climate change in 2025, is The Climate Adaptation Generation. You, young man, are part of that generation. And I wanted to address what I saw as an important gap, and I wanted to empower you. I wanted to empower your voice. And I do so not out of wanting to be liked, or and I've never made any money. I've never gotten a raise. I've never gotten promoted. But the academic institutions love my many degrees from very prestigious universities, and the fact that everything I've published since I was 22, I'm 68 now, has seen ink, has gotten published. They like that part. So now, since the publisher was using the wrong name, I now use my name and I get the word out on podcasts. And it's just been delightful, actually empowering people in many ways, in many, many ways. The graphic artist that did the cover of my book is an Aborigine originally from Australia who now lives in Nepal. His voice matters not just in words, but in images. And he made it better. He improved it. So my life is inclusive. And it's been a joy. I walk in the gratitude of God in terms of being able to help preserve life on this planet. You, sir, and I, sir, have a obligation. Turtles won't do it. Trees won't do it. Wangari, Dr. Wangi Matai alone can't do it. But now, as I speak her voice to you over the Atlantic Ocean, we, I think, have a chance. The climate adaptation is the only book that uses flourishing. All the rest is to scare you. It is to create what I call climate anxiety. 70% of the world feels climate anxiety. 45% says it interferes with their life. And that is deadly. That's a scary form of ignorance. And what I try to do, and some of your questions raised it right away, very perceptively, young man. One of the things I do, I'm a social worker, so I use social work magic, and I tell the kids, and everyone's a kid now to me, and I say, first of all, you're normal. It's okay to feel climate anxiety. And I end up talking to their parents too with the same speech. It's okay to feel climate anxiety, but you, my friend, have skin in the game, as President Obama said. You're going to be around long after I go. You're the first generation to feel the big impacts and the first generation that can do anything about it. So I want to empower you. I want to empower you. So the climate anxiety, first, you're normal. Two, you're not helpless. You're not helpless. You don't have to be helpless. So skimming mountaintops, summarizing, making a long story short, I show them where we have had successful climate adaptation. There are places, there are places that succeed. There are examples. Your generation has global technology. Now, I'm a dinosaur and we're working through the airwaves together now, but you have a lot of things we don't have. You have artificial intelligence, so powerful that it predicts the weather better than anything. So I give them a sense that you're normal. I give them a sense that you're not helpless. And then the last thing I say is what I alluded to just now. You have the power of the millennial mind. You have AI. You have so many things. You have infrared LIDAR. Just 2 months ago, we discovered where all the water under the North American continent goes, all the water hydrogeologically. So we can predict a drought without looking at the clouds. When that hits Africa, in sub Saharan Africa, you will have food, you will save lives, you will have a climate adaptation that the West can learn from. So the new knowledge that we have just found out 2 weeks ago off the coast 150 miles west of me, probably 2,600 miles east of you, under the Atlantic Ocean, a very salty ocean. Underneath it, they found an enormous body of fresh water that they never knew was there.
Wow.
That's the type of thing that I tell not just the students, their parents about is that. And so that's been wonderfully empowering. In my book, Climate Adaptation, young people aren't always so good at advocacy. You don't have a law degree, you get angry very fast, you're impatient. I was that way too. I understand it, and I've taught for 40 years, so I understand it very well. So I give an advocacy brief in there so you can get to yes. Old people have the money. Old people have the disposable income. Old people have the political power positions. Old people are the ones you have to decide to move, or at least stay out of the way while the young people move forward. So the advocacy briefs help bring them in. And some of your other questions alluded to intergenerational interaction. This is one of the ways. Now, one of the first things to stop a young person is to say, well, we already do this, or that had never been done, something like that. Well, I put an answer into that. I put planners toolkits in there. Here's what needs to be done. Here's what you can do right now. You can do land use. And another two things I acknowledge and respect greatly are emergency responders. Now, when natural disasters happen, we're all emergency responders. If you saw your child drowning in a flood, or anyone's child, you would be an emergency responder. You wouldn't call someone, hey, come, it'd be too late. You'd have to do it. So we are all now emergency responders. In the Texas case, I don't know if it made international news, there's a flood in Texas. The Boy Scouts, which are strong in Africa, were all prepared and ready to go. All 400 of them were trained. They lived upstream. There were 410 other people that were not trained. They died. That's how stark emergency responders are. The second group, and maybe it's the academic in me, is librarians. I love librarians. They protect knowledge. It's so important. They fight ignorance. They may not get paid much, they may be too strict, but in emergencies, they are information first responders. They've done a study on this in the US. in emergencies where the cell phones don't work and you don't know where your relatives are and you don't know where to sleep at night, you go to the library and the lights are on and the doors are open and people have the most answers that they can get. So librarians and emergency responders with advocacy briefs and planners toolkits, I think can get us to the next generation. We have the adaptation generation, which is you, sir. Then we have the adaptation resistant generation. That's generally older and generally wealthier. So that is a problem, and that's a problem in the global north and south divide too. Now, the digital divide is often described as people that can't afford technology. That's partially true. But even in every place that can, older people are resistant to AI. And artificial intelligence is not the leader, and it can have racial biases. It can have economic biases, but they can be worked out. That doesn't mean we do away with it. AI is here to stay. AI will be like eyeglasses. And so this ability to use this powerful information can help us persuade people to make decisions in what I call in one of your very perceptive questions, where I find a question like yours often not in the US, but from people of color in other countries, is an indigenous people. And I worked a lot with United States indigenous people. My best friends on the reservation where I socialized was there, is place-based studies. Place-based studies. It will sound very simple to you. It's where you live, work, and play. You start where you're at. You don't start on a rule that comes from the UN or that comes from Washington, D.C. or your state capital. You start where you at. A place, think of what the word place means. It's where you had your first kiss. It's where your first drink. It's where you saw your parents grieve a lost one. These are places of deep emotional impact. These are places you never forget because of your humanity and your spirit. So the older people with their wisdom and knowledge and deeper knowledge of place have a lot to contribute to the younger people who have the powerful new knowledge of the place, more with how to deal with it than what was there. Now, to me, place-based, and I've advocated this not very successfully in the US. I tried my best on it, but here's how they do it. Bless you, my son. They 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 get a bunch of case studies and they say, well, on the average, you should clean up to this level. Well, what place is on the average? No place is on the average. Medicine, law, architecture, engineering, all the professions use case studies. That doesn't work for environmental decision making. You have to know how the water flows. You have to know what the land looks like. You have to know what the air is. And it's more deep than that. We have a big flood. What happens after a big flood? Public diseases. Public diseases. Waste is all over the place. The last encyclopedia I wrote was the Encyclopedia of Trash Talk. Now, it's not about swearing. It's about waste and recycling around the world. And we don't like to say it, and it's icky, and we have a bad attitude toward it, in my opinion. It's just part of who we are as biological creatures. And it becomes a disease vector after a flood. After a wildfire, what happens? Mudslides. Very powerful, very powerful. Hard to predict currently, but your generation, millennial generation, can predict where a drought will be. If you can predict where a drought will be, you can predict where a wildfire risk can be. Many things like that. The other power you have that's just come out, and we had LIDAR, which is a laser that can see underground, and we have infrared LIDAR now that can see deeper in the ground than we have ever drilled. And so Yellowstone National Park is a very famous US national park. It's essentially a volcano waiting to erupt 50, about 80 kilometers across. Well, every year it's been going down 1 millimeter, which is very fast in geological time, but very slow in our very short lives of 80 years. And now, just last year, It went up 11 millimeters. It's cooking. It's cooking. And your generation is aware of that, whereas my generation had no clue about that. The indigenous people did, though. They had their stories. And the power of place and the power of community to adapt is the power of storytelling. The stories of the elders may not have a quick and easy answer where you take a multiple choice test and say A, B, C, or D. They have deeper meaning because they understand the place that you're at. So this is a little bit more responsive than perhaps your question,
Yeah.
but I wanted to move this on. And another thing that's very exciting, I think you as an audio person will find this very exciting. I did an audiobook. Well, everyone does an audiobook.
Yes.
Well, I did it Bob's way. I did it in Bob world. I used 47 different AI voices for every chapter. I have an African seer that starts every chapter. For conservatives, I use the Burt Reynolds voice. He's an old Southern actor. And I have him talking about environmental justice. I have him saying the words so that the people that are narrow, conservative, and ignorant will realize even he can talk about it. I have an angry African American young man talking about it. Now, I don't think he sounds angry. I don't think he sounds angry. To me, he doesn't sound angry. Other people have said, wow, he sounds sort of angry. No, he doesn't. It's your racism on that intonation. But I have an older Pakistani woman. I have corporate females and corporate males giving that. I use many voices. And why does Bob use that in his audiobook? Because I want to get to everyone. I want to get to vulnerable people. I'm stumped by the idea of how do you market an audiobook to blind people? And I just don't know the answer, but I'm going to look and on that. So the circling back to answer your first question, who is Bob? I'm protecting vulnerability. I've always viewed it as a right, duty, and privilege to do that. And everything I've done in my whole life has been for that. I'm always for the underdog when I watch a American football game. I don't really have a team favorite, and I have played contact sports. So I'm always of that mind. I read the Bible twice before I was at the age of 15. So, that I don't even question why. I don't question why other people don't. But nonetheless, the Bible, like many other books, are tales of people doing the best they can under difficult circumstances. That ties a lot in with climate adaptation. You asked a very important question about environmental justice. I was one of the pioneers in environmental justice. I wrote the first law review on environmental justice. Because I didn't want to fight about the words, I named it all three words:
Right.
environmental racism, environmental equity, and environmental justice. And so I got academic. There's four kinds of justice on that. So, and to me, what does that word mean? It means a disproportionate impact of environmental decisions by race, class, and income. And global north, global south, you can't get more disproportionate. It is striking. But nonetheless, your question was, well, so you do EJ. How do you know it just doesn't help one group against another and people don't want it? Climate change. Climate change is so big, the natural disasters are so big, we need everyone. We need the most vulnerable. Sure, the most vulnerable are the canaries in the coal mine. That means miners, when they were seeing if there was poison gas, would put canaries down there. And if they died, that was poison gas. That's what that term means, canaries in the coal mine. And so the vulnerable get the worst first. And that's true. And so a sense of justice would say we need to protect them, but it's more self interest than that. The natural disasters are so big, the floods are so big and intense. Rain intensification comes down, straight line winds, knocks over power poles. Everyone on the grid is affected. There's no way to buy your way out of climate change. So the reason we need the poor, the weak, the vulnerable, the needy is we need to scale up climate adaptation to a level the rich couldn't buy their way to. They need us. They need you. Everyone needs each other
Yes.
to do the scalability problem, to address that problem all over the world. And as population increases and as urban growth increases dramatically, we need that more than ever. You can have a penthouse in the biggest city. When that wind comes in, you're going to feel it like everyone else. And what might be frustrating for you as a young person is the simplicity of some of the answers. I've done it myself. I've gotten into a little bit of trouble with that, but I grew up in an agricultural farming community. I know how to do work. And so I had a concrete roof in a town I lived in Oregon. And I just did the physics of it. And I said, we didn't have air conditioning. So it got very hot. And so I said, well, I'm going to paint it white. I'm going to paint my roof white. And I got the reflector things that little girls use for bedazzling their outfits. And I mixed it in with the paint. And it was hard work. It was hard work, but I painted it white. And that was the first year that the state had a tax deduction for reducing energy usage, but they didn't include white paint. So it cost me $411. I'm very frugal. And I kept track and I deducted it from my taxes. And they didn't, what do we do? What do we do? Well, they didn't do anything to me, but the next year they said paint doesn't count. 12 years later, New York City has a white paint program to paint the roofs of all the places in New York City white. It saves so much money. It's so simple. So simple.
Yeah.
Another thing, perhaps, where you have paved roads, and everyone wants a paved roads, right? It beats riding the rivers all the time. So you're on a paved road and it's non-porous. The water runs right off of it. Like the indigenous people say in the US, water doesn't lie. And you have big parking lots and things like this. Well, that's why we have more floods. The Dutch, who are under sea level for the most part, are way ahead on this. If they get sea level rise, they could be under the sea. So they have figured out ways to move water. The Nordic countries have a way to deal with the plastics forming in the ocean. I'm not going to flap my gums at you in terms of plastics. It's a problem you will inherit for sure, and I haven't addressed it in my books yet because it's a separate piece. The other aspect is a book that has come out called The Real Environmentalist. Now, it's written by a quite conservative man who I don't agree with in many of his politics, and his idea is it's the blue collar, it's the workers of the people that have to be in control of these things. Now, when Hawaii had the big fire and a city with over half indigenous people from the island of Hawaii, really many died. They come in to clean up. You can have a PhD. You're still grabbing a shovel. You are still part of their version of climate adaptation because environmental justice is an empowerment of the canaries in the coal mine. We get them going on that. So the future with climate adaptation, the advocacy briefs, the planners tools, some of it will seem simplistic. How do you stop a road from flooding? Elevate the road. Now, they had a very sad instance where I live a month ago of a 13-year-old boy playing in a small pond. They had rain intensification and he got sucked down a culvert, and emergency responders came and tried heroically to try to save him, but they couldn't because he died. And so, what is the answer? Make a bigger culvert, one, so the emergency responders can get into that places where they can get in and save, put a screen on it or fencing of some type, and third, educate the kid about the risk of that. Those three things, and we would have a young life. Young lives are very, very important. You, as the climate adaptation generation, don't have old children. You have young children. You have very vulnerable children. You may have elders who are vulnerable. We're all vulnerable at some point in our lives,
Yes.
but you have the future in your hands. Your young children need to be protected for vulnerability.
Mm.
So if you're having culvert issues in an urban area, which all cities in the world do, by the way,
Yeah.
then train your kids, put a screen on them, and be on top of that. So I think I've answered most of your questions here, but
Exactly.
the
Exactly.
on that. But you've been so patient with me getting the time wrong. I'm embarrassed about that on it. And I do think I should hold up my books. This is the climate adaptation generation. This is the one that won the award from the librarians. It will be an audiobook in about a week. And this is climate change in the classroom. This has a bunch of resources that are international that you can just go online and plug and play. You can bring climate education into your maths, into science, into art. It's not all science. Climate is not all science. My wife gets upset with me because when I'm at the grocery store and I see
Yeah.
someone in high school, I ask, "Have you taken a climate course?" Well, no, I haven't. I go out to my truck, I bring back a book, I sign it, and I say, please leave a good review. And
Yes.
the and it's awkward for me to be so self-promotional because I used to think, well, my work speaks for itself. Nobody really reads books anymore. Your generation listens to podcasts, listens to
Exactly.
audio books, streams everything.
Everything.
And whether
Exactly.
I like it or not, part of me being an adaption generation person is I accept that and I go with it and I'm grateful for it because you reach more people.
Thank
You
you.
reach how people can feel.
Thank
And
you.
the motherland is one of the places we need to protect the most, almost more than almost anywhere else on the planet.
Yeah.
I have great high hopes for all of Africa in terms of eventually being the leader we turn to
Thank
for
you.
climate adaptation.
Thank you so much for the beautiful insights. You even made the job easier as in every single question that we've also drive into that you've tried to answer. I also make the word simplify. But I'll also drive to my own perspective regarding your book, The Climate Adaptation Generation, and that is a beautiful, and also the other one you've also spoke about. And we also need to understand we younger generations, we do have everything, and we also need to try our best as we younger generation to try our best to use it more positively for the good of our surrounding, for the good of the future of the weather that we are having around us. Because I have to be honest with you, Mr. Robert, the climate is not really easy, and we are even here now, everything has changed. We realize that the climate has changed, and these are the things like the artificial intelligence we have are the ones that are going to let us know what will happen further, so we can know how to prevent ourselves against stuff like that. And I also want to thank you for the beautiful insight regarding the questions that I've also given, and also you've said answered regarding climate adaptation and how we can also help ourselves as communities to improve ourselves as well. There is a question I also normally ask during the end of the show, Mr. Roberts. If there is anyone, there's from our forefathers, from our ancestors, there are a lot of beautiful things that do exist during our ancestral time that is missing in our time today. If there is anyone or anything you would like to bring back to our time today, Mr. Roberts, what do you think that thing will be, Mr. Roberts?
Well, Dr. Wangari Maathai, who inspired way beyond her limitations of an African woman in Africa at her time. Beyond just empowering women, she empowered everyone on that. Her necessary relationship to the ecology, to simply planting trees, inspired women and men in India. I like to see all genders represented, not just one all the time, whether it's all female or all male. We all need to be in this together. The needs are different. The maternity versus paternity issues are different in terms of the youngest children. So Dr. Wangari Maathai has been my main and almost only inspiration. The other one is my spouse of almost 40 years, Robin Morris Collin. She, according to Ancestry.com, is 50% Congolese and 50% English. Now, how does that happen? And so, without her, and she's co authored with me the first sustainability encyclopedia
Yeah.
that was ever written. And we did 3 volumes, and we included business. US environmentalists, international environmentalists do not include business. Real communities have business. Real communities have workers.
Mm.
So those, mothers, fathers, grandparents, grandmothers, aunts, uncles, families, you ask what inspires me the most is those people that are right at the front lines on a daily basis, breathing the air, walking the land, drinking the water, and have gotten over climate anxiety. Those two women of color are really the only inspirations I've ever had, except for my religion, and so Christianity. And so I'm not. I go to church every so often, so I'm not proselytizing,
Yeah.
but it's been informed my beliefs as an adolescent in terms of what is good and what is evil on that. So those two people, I wouldn't be who I am without them, and really, really, really greatly impacted me. I might point out that it has been African American men in my life who have mainly hired me.
Wow.
Alphonse Pickney was a head of sociology at Hunter
Yes.
College. Dr. William Harris was at University of Virginia who hired me.
Yeah.
Uh, and Dr. Lee Pelton, president of Willamette University, they were buddy, but they gave me a chance when no one else did, African American men.
Yes.
And I am very, very thankful to all of them. They don't like to be hugged. I don't like to be hugged. But you asked who protected me
Yeah.
and who helped me. Those three black men gave me a chance when no one else would. So, the two women I mentioned and those three African American scholars, Dr. Alphonse Pinckney, may he rest in peace, Dr. William Harris, and Dr. Lee Pelton, have been just, I'm really forever grateful. Now, sometimes they might have regretted hiring me because I speak out, not against them ever, but for environmental justice, it got politically uncomfortable for universities to have an environmental justice activist bringing all his farm workers from the fields to his classes, visiting homeless shelters with my students so that they could see that. That became a little awkward, but none of those students ever resisted, never resented it, and always have come back to me with a thank you for sharing that with them. And that gives me hope for the climate adaptation generation because you're more open minded than we are. You're smarter than we
Yeah.
are, and you have
Yeah.
more tools. So
Yes.
I am just delighted to hear your voice. And when I saw those questions, I said, if I have to grade this man, he got an A plus.
Thank you so much. It's not easy, but you have to be honest. It's not easy. It's really tough. We have to try our best to make sure that every single thing we are bringing out from those things we are reading from the guest, we have to try our best to make sure. I have to try my best to make sure that this question is something that would definitely align with also the help of some research and stuff like that. I'll be able to get that. And also, I'm so glad that you as a man that has been inspired and has been impacted by a black person is very beautiful as a person, and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that, that at least I can find the inspiration from others. That is the beauty of the world. We find ourselves kindness and love with each other, which has helped every single one of us become more better despite the background we have and differences we have within each other. Is so beautiful. I also want to use this opportunity to thank you for the time, the opportunity, for the whole discussion that you've made regarding this climate adaptation. Thank you so much, Mr. Roberts. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, my young man, and I hope we stay in touch. And anything I can do to assist you or help you, count on me.
No worries, Mr. Roberts. Have a wonderful day, Mr. Roberts. Bye bye.
Peace.